Good evening. The regular meeting of the Southern Shores Town Council for July the 10th, 2018 is now in session. Before I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would remind you that in addition to the 2 public comment period sign-up sheets, there are 3 public hearing sign-up sheets back there. Just sign up for one or all of them, whatever you want to do. But if you do sign up, please put your name legibly so I can read it. Thank you. Now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance if you would. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'd ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The agenda's been approved. I need a motion now, council, to approve the consent agenda, tab 1.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion about that, council? All in favor of approving consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda approved, consent agenda approved. At this time, I'll turn to staff reports. Our town planner, Wes Haskett. Good evening, Wes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a brief report for y'all tonight for the month of June. With respect to permitting, there were 7 zoning permits issued, 44 building permits issued. Those consisted of 1 new single-family dwelling, 4 additions, 1 remodel, 1 repair, 2 accessories, and 35 others. There are currently 21 single-family dwellings under construction in the town, and the total amount of fees collected was $7,949.80. With respect to the town's Historic Landmark Commission, they held a meeting on June 26, and they recommended designation of 116 Ocean Boulevard as a historic landmark. This public hearing has been set by the mayor to be held on August 7th, here at the August 7th council meeting. And lastly, we have the July 16, 2018 Planning Board meeting next week. The board will consider VA-1805, a variance application submitted by E. Kraus Gray Jr. for a variance from Section 36-202D 4 and 5 of the Southern Shores Town Code for the property located at 291 Duck Road. And this is with respect to an existing deck that encroaches on the rear and side setbacks. Any questions?
Any questions, council? Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. David Cole, our police chief. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The police report for June 2018. As you can see from the screen, down at the bottom, we had a total of 1,283 calls for service. That's an increase of about 311 compared to last year. Under the incidents, which are actually the crimes reported, you can see that we had 16. We had 9 criminal arrests. We had a total of 5 motor vehicle accidents. And under the citations, the officers conducted 165 traffic stops, and under the written citations, they issued 76 and another 61 warning citations. And you can tell that our community resource officer is out and working, and she's doing an excellent job. There were 81 ordinance violations. Most of those were parking. Any questions?
Any questions, council, for Chief Cole?
Would you like the other report now?
Sure.
Good.
It's your choice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the same report that I believe was forwarded to you once we had completed it, regarding the no left-hand turn traffic detail. This is also the same report with the exception of some additional information that I was just able to complete at about 4:30 today for some of the other numbers for the other weekends. Before I get into the report, I just want to give you a little bit of background. First of all, I'd like to go on record that neither the police department nor I drew any conclusions from this report. We simply reported the facts, which are the numbers. We tracked and counted motor vehicles in specific locations. I did not say that traffic was backed up on any of the side streets. What I did say and reported were the number of vehicles that were counted on specific streets, and they were compared to prior weeks of the traffic counts from prior weeks. Some of the irresponsible bloggers, wannabe social media celebrities, and the like drew their own conclusions and assumed that those were the same conclusions of the police department. They were not. I can tell you that for a fact. I did state that on Monday, after the no left-hand turn, I had some interesting voicemails and emails from happy people and from some not so happy people. Some of them stated that traffic was great on their streets. There were no problems at all, while others complained that there were no cops around to catch the speeders. Traffic was backed up on my street worse than it has ever been since I lived there. So obviously we can't make everybody happy, but those are what I had reported on. Anyway, we also received 2 phone calls from 2 people that got tickets for left-hand turns and told us that it was illegal because their GPS told them to turn there, and therefore they were well within the law. After trying to explain to them, there were 70-plus red and orange and white traffic barrels. There was a 10-foot by 10-foot lighted message sign on the west side of the bridge before you come in that was warning you there was no left-hand turn ahead. And we also had a big black and white marked SUV with pretty blue lights that were all on. And these people still chose to turn left. And I was asked, well, who's going to pay for the speeding ticket and for the no left-hand turn? And I simply explained to them that if they had been paying attention to the road ahead instead of what their GPS app was telling them to do, they probably wouldn't have turned left and they probably wouldn't have gotten a ticket. And they continued to want to know what they should do. So I suggested that maybe the GPS would pay the ticket for them, and then they hung up on me. What I want you to understand is that while this traffic detail was going on, I also want you to know we had 1 patrol officer on duty to handle all the calls for service. The other 2 were assigned for the no left-hand traffic turn. That officer handled 15 calls for service. He had 1 EMS call, 3 motor vehicle accidents, responded to 2 alarms, 1 follow-up. There were 4 talk with officer. Most of those were complaining about the ticket that they had just gotten. And at one point, we had to pull all the officers because we had an overdose on Duckwoods Drive. Officers spent a good 45 minutes there, administered 4 doses of Narcan, and were able to bring that victim back. Then one of them went back to the no left-hand turn. I also had 1 suspicious condition and 2 careless and reckless drivers. And the only reason I say that is that I'd like the audience to understand that while we're dealing with the no left-hand turn traffic and all the other traffic, life still goes on, and our officers are still out there trying to handle calls, and they have to work within that traffic as well. Sunday was very similar as far as calls for service. They had 1 less call, and luckily no overdoses on that day. These are the traffic counts we're going to show you here. This is a comparison from the Saturday prior to the no left-hand turn and the Saturday of the no left-hand turn. I drew no conclusions from it. I simply stated there were 17 less vehicles than the week before. I didn't say that it was bumper to bumper, it was a failure. That's not my decision to decide whether or not it was successful. All I can tell you is there were 17 less vehicles than the week before. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. So I thought, well, at least I can compare it to the same Saturday a year ago. And even then, you only see 3% change, 391 less vehicles than the year before on that same Saturday. That's the only reason I even compared it, because it's technically apples to oranges. This is NC12 versus Trinity. Again, I didn't say Trinity was bumper to bumper. All I told you was, based on the numbers, there was an additional 268 vehicles that traveled on Trinity compared to the week before. COTS. I never claimed that COTS was backed up bumper to bumper, although I did have a voicemail and one lady that came in and told me it was. All I can tell you is that these are the numbers, and the week prior to, compared to the week of the no left-hand turn, there was an additional 268 vehicles that were on COTS. And that's all I said, and that's all that was in the report. This is Sunday, the weekend prior to, compared to the week of no left-hand turn. Now, as you can see, the numbers are fairly similar. There were 23 less vehicles than the week before. Again, I compared it because I compared Saturday, I compared Sunday to the previous Sunday from 2017. You saw a 1% reduction. It was 185 vehicle difference. This was Sunday for Trinity. There was only 44 more vehicles that traveled on Trinity than the week before on a Sunday. This is COTS for Sunday. As you can see, there's 62 more vehicles than the previous Sunday. It was zero tolerance. Somebody asked how many warnings we gave out. We didn't give any warnings. That's why it's called zero tolerance. Anybody that made a left-hand turn and the officer was in a position to deal with it, they dealt with it. On Saturday, they handed out 25 traffic citations for the no left-hand turn violation. And then on Sunday was a light day too. They handed out 3 for a total of 25 total citations written during that weekend. These are the numbers that we used to make the pretty pie charts. And up until about 3 years ago, we only had a couple of traffic counters until I was able to secure some grants and we purchased some more. But what we had done for that particular weekend is we put 2 traffic counters on Dogwood. One is at Wood Duck, in the area of Wood Duck. The other is in the area of 182 South Dogwood. Prior to that, within about 3 or 4 years ago, we only had 1 counter on South Dogwood. When we were finally able to secure some extra grant money, I was able to get another one because I was a little concerned. I wanted one north of the country club. And as you can see, there's an average of 500 vehicles that don't make it to East Dogwood that we were always counting before. All I can tell you is that they're either going to the country club, going to their homes, or they're going to the marina. But 500 on an average Saturdays is significant. So that's why we have this up here to compare. So in some of the reports where you'll see A or B, that's after the country club, and B for before the country club, until we actually had a specific location to put the traffic counters. Also understand that when you see this data, these traffic counters will only count up to a vehicle going at least 3.5 to 3 miles an hour. If they're going slower than that, it's not going to count the vehicles. There's no tube counters will do that, and neither will these. And we knew that before we purchased them. So just understand that when cars start to stack and bumper to bumper, these numbers could be a lot higher than what you're actually seeing, because once the cars stop going at least 3 miles an hour, they're not going to be counted. So a couple of times you will see in here where there's a 0, they're mechanical. They don't always work. We don't make numbers up. If it's 0, that's what it ends up with. If it's a low number, there's a good chance some of the traffic counters that we have are solar and battery backup. Normally we have 3 offices that are assigned the responsibilities of these, and normally on a Thursday and or a Friday, they always check to make sure that the batteries are up to charge and they're working. Because our most important counts, in my opinion, are for the weekends. So we want to make sure that that's the case. So all this does is this just shows you the breakdown, as you can see, throughout the week. Out of 2,342, for example, on Saturday, 603 of those never made it to East Dogwood. So there was actually 1,739 that traversed on to East Dogwood. These were the numbers that we took off of the traffic counters for Trinity. Someone had asked about, I believe, the 526 on that Monday, which did look like a low number, because it looks like Trinity on an average is about 700 to 800 vehicles every day on Trinity and Juniper. But luckily, that weekend, I had 2 counters, so I checked the one at Trinity, and then I checked the one that was down by Juniper. And the one at Juniper was 532, so 526 was pretty darn close.
Do they count both ways, Chief?
No.
So
All I,
traffic coming out of Dogwood or coming out of Trinity from the beach road is not counted?
no.
You
Okay,
just count
Yeah.
northbound.
just northbound.
Yep, just north. We want to know what's coming in, because we know sooner or later it's going to go out anyway. We do have some traffic counts at the point where we're checking that. We just don't have enough counters to do all that.
What was the approximate cost of the setup to do this? Just,
The traffic counters themselves,
not the counters, but the actual no left turn, what was?
I think Peter's got the,
what was
Yeah,
that?
it's between $6,800 and $7,000.
Yeah, 6,800 to 7,000. Okay, that's what I thought it was about 6,000.
these are just the numbers from what you've already seen. But I was just able to complete this at about 4:30 today. This is traffic data from June 25th, to July 1st. This is the 4th of July weekend These are the traffic counts. As you can see, northbound at Wood Duck on Saturday, there was 3797. Then you go to 182 South Dogwood, and there was 2,814 that actually made it to that traffic counter, which is just before East Dogwood. So the same thing for Sunday. There was actually 2,045 that were counted on South Dogwood at the 182 traffic counter. Then when we compare it to the weekend before, you can see there was almost 1,100 more vehicles on the 4th of July weekend than the weekend before. This is the same comparison for Trinity. And there was about 165 more on a Saturday. And then the Sea-Outs, Sea-Outs got slammed. And that's 1,359 for Sea-Outs on Saturday. This is Skyline, this is NC-12. We also have traffic counters that are permanently fixed on NC-12 in the area of Skyline. And what's interesting about this, and as we go through this, and when we get to the very end, you'll see why it's important. But if you look at Friday first, Friday is the heavy day. But what's interesting is we go through these numbers, you start looking at the side streets, including South Dogwood, and that traffic is not doing South Dogwood. And I don't know what the answer is, other than if people are deciding to come on a Friday, they don't care what time they come. And they're not coming all at 10 a.m. kind of a thing. That's all, the only thing I can think of. But Fridays, I mean, you're talking, 11,395 the week before, and then the week of 4th of July, it was 11,299. And then you look at Saturday for the week of the July 4th, and it was 9,372. It was 1,829 less than a week before. Now, what you also need to understand is that we only had 5 traffic counters when we did the no left-hand turn, but we were finally able to get another one fixed and repaired, so we ended up with 6. So the week of July 4th, this weekend, we were able to take care of our 2 traffic counters on South Dogwood. We kept 1 on Juniper, and then we put 1 on Hillcrest, Wax Myrtle, and Sea-Outs. And you can see the addresses are written up there where they are either in front of or near. They're all north of Hickory, so that they can't turn around and go back around and be double counted on Hillcrest, and if they do, then they're bigger morons than you thought, because that would be just stupid. But as you can see, Wax Myrtle on Saturday, July 4th weekend, was 1,240 vehicles. And on Hillcrest, there was 2,151 vehicles. Hillcrest got slammed, big time. And the Sundays were pretty high too. This is just comparing Trinity from the 4th of July weekend. I think I went back the wrong way. This is the bottom line, and this is what I want to explain to you as the council. These are all 3 of the side streets. There's a total of 4,750 vehicles that traversed Sea-Outs, Wax Myrtle, and Hillcrest combined. There were only 2,814 vehicles that traversed on South Dogwood. 1,936 traversed on those 3 roads from NC-12. So almost another 2,000 vehicles are coming off of NC-12 and bottling up the side streets. If I lived on one of those streets, I would be upset because they're getting the brunt of both. So I'm just here to tell you, we as a police department and the size and the budget we have, we can't please everybody all the time. Never have, never will. It's traffic. We have to work in it no matter what street it's on. We have to deal with it, we have to work around it, we have to work in it, and those are the numbers. This is the last weekend. These are the traffic numbers for last weekend. As you can see, there's almost 900 of them that never make it to East Dogwood again. I'm not a member of the club, I don't know, but apparently it's a pretty popular place on Saturdays. Because I don't think all of them are going to the marina. And granted, some of those are going to rental houses and those types of things, but they're not making it to the second traffic counter.
Stopping for breakfast.
Yeah, it's a lot of breakfast. And then you can see the comparison from last weekend to the 4th of July weekend. Numbers were still going up a little bit. It was up 183 on Saturday. But again, Fridays, as far as the cut-through and that, were very minimal compared to what you're going to see on NC 12. This is Trinity. There was actually 18 less vehicles than the 4th of July weekend that traveled on Trinity and Juniper. And then on Sea-Outs, you'll see the red numbers. That's when the battery either wasn't powerful enough or whatever, so it counted up to 2 and 12 and said, I'm done. With the counts on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, there was an additional 226 that ended up on Sea-Outs compared to the 4th of July weekend. And this is NC 12 to Duck Road. There were actually 1,118 less vehicles that traveled than the 4th of July weekend on Saturday. Again, if you look at the Fridays, Friday was the big day. There was a lot of vehicles, but the numbers weren't on the side streets. It was mostly just NC 12. This was Wax Myrtle comparing last weekend to the 4th of July weekend. Wax Myrtle got hammered again. There was another 119 on top of what they had already for the week before, for a total of 1,359 vehicles. So when you add up all three of the side streets again, for this last weekend, it's 4,923 vehicles on Saturday, and only 2,997 of those were on South Dogwood, so the other 1,926 came from NC 12. The only other thing I want you to understand is that I have no way of counting this traffic that's coming off of Trinity and Juniper and comes off of Chickahaw, because our traffic counters are near Skyline. We know they're turning left, probably most of them, and heading north to Duck. But I have no way of knowing if they're going to stay on NC 12 or if they're going to turn left and go up one of the side streets, which is Sea-Outs, Wax Myrtle.
Like Porpoise, getting over on Porpoise.
That's correct. So there's a good 500 to 800 vehicles that we're not even counting because I don't feel that we can fairly tell you where they're actually going. We just can't. So I think that's it.
Chief Cole, were you able to get out and drive around any?
I was out. Matter of fact, my sister and her husband were here for a short weekend, and I still took the time, and I was out there for about 3 hours.
So that's more false innuendo that's floating out there, that you did not drive around.
I guess I just know I was out driving
Okay.
around. And what I can tell you is that contrary to what some of the things I read in the paper, I was out there. That intersection was professionally set up. I've worked traffic for a lot of years on major interstates back in New York. It was done very professionally. It was done adequately. There was nothing confusing about it. There was over 70 barrels that are orange and white, and in between all of those, there was a big SUV that was black and white with blue lights on it. And there were multiple signs that said, no left-hand turn. The only thing that was confusing was the folks that were listening to their app instead of applying common sense and watching what's happening up the road. That was what was confusing. There was nothing confusing about the way that was set up. Again, I'm not here to tell you it was a success or not a success. If you want to do another one and the manager tells me to do it, if we've got the men to do it, that would be great. I'd love to give my officers the overtime, but I can tell you that traffic is going to go somewhere, and if you don't let it go there, it's going to go somewhere else. We've already shown you from the numbers here that an additional 2,000 vehicles are already jumping off and jumping onto the side streets to commingle with the 2,000 and plus that have already come off of South Dogwood. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that up until 12 years ago, I was that traffic. My wife and I came here, and we were that traffic at least once, if we were lucky, twice a year for a week. And I also knew that when I bought a house in Southern Shores, that it was a beautiful tourist destination. And we decided we still wanted to live here, so.
When you started your report out here, you said 3 words that I want to repeat. For the record. That's what you said, and then you went on with your report. Well, I'd like to say, for the record, I think this innuendo about you giving a biased report is despicable.
Well, look it.
I know you're a big boy, and you can...
You know, I sat over in my office. I mean, I've spent, you don't want to know how much time I spent on it. But a half hour before I came over here, I've been praying on this. I don't read all the nonsense in the social media and those types of things. My grandma always told me, if you want to know what's going on, go over to the grocery store and buy the National Enquirer. And that's what I would do if I wanted to know about silly stuff. What I'm concerned with is I thought, Lord, help me choose my words. And I opened the Bible, I kid you not, 45 minutes ago. And the passage I came to was Taming of the Tongues. And I read it and I went, it's okay. You know, people will say what they want to say. My dad always told me, he says, you consider the source. And I had a lieutenant colonel that always told me, you take the high road no matter what. So I'm just here to tell you, these are the numbers. This is what we have to give you. However you want to interpret that is okay with me. Yes.
Chief, let me make sure I understand this. That compared to the week before, the Saturday had 17, I'm going to get back to the numbers and the efficacy of the turn, of the experiment, because really that's what it was, right? I mean, we tried to experiment with this. There were 17 less vehicles on the target street, which wasn't Hillcrest, although I think that information is useful. There were 17 on Saturday, 23 on Sunday, less vehicles, for a total of 40 less vehicles. The cost was about $6,800 to roughly $7,000, which equates to about $170 per vehicle that we know. Essentially, we paid those folks, we could have just as easily paid 39 of them $140 not to go down the street and made out ahead.
Or you could have paid me $75,000 and I could have told you what was going to happen.
I'm just saying, I mean, we were only looking at a 40 difference. Now, I realize that the year before was more, and I do know that these seasons fluctuate. It's tough to predict that sort of thing. But as an experiment and looking at the numbers, you know, essentially $170 per person not to go down the street is not a whole lot. And I also appreciate the drone footage you had, because I thought that was really helpful. In watching that, I noticed that a lot of folks were coming across from Dogwood. A ton were coming across from Dogwood.
And that's legal, and we don't have a problem with it.
No, but those are
That's
not
right.
going to be, those are likely, in my mind, not going to be tourists.
No. Look,
Those are going to be locals who know
I
how to
can
get
tell you,
across
based on my experience for 34 and a half years that I've been doing this, the locals will figure that out. A tourist is going to see a marked police car with blue lights and go, I'm not going to take a chance on it. But there were some that were they were paying attention to the app, I'm sorry, and they made a left-hand turn anyway.
But, well, I guess what I'm saying is that, in fact, it seems to me that a lot of folks were locals who were using it, and that's borne by
Possibly.
some of the data in terms of where we lost people from a test point to
Sure.
another test point. And that seems like an awfully expensive experiment for 40 less vehicles over 2 days.
Right. And again, I'm not here to belittle and make this sound, because I do, I feel for the people who live on these streets.
Yes.
But I also live in this town, and I deal with it too. And I don't blame the police department, and I don't blame you. All I can tell you is that, I think I mentioned this a while back, I researched as far back as 2004, and then I just got bored. But from 2004, these same conversations, some of the same innuendo, same nonsense has been going on. The only thing that has changed is all you. That's the only thing that's changed. Let me ask you something, the audience too. How many of you have attended a Currituck County committee meeting of their council and asked them for support? Because I'll tell you what, if you haven't been up to Corolla in a while, in Currituck County, and see how many houses that are 15 and 20 bedroom houses that are being built, nobody seems, look, I was always taught from a long time ago, if you want to deal with a problem, you deal with it from the source. That's part of the problem. When you're building a 10, 15 bedroom house, and this is not against the builders, I love the builders. My dad was a builder. But when you build a 15 bedroom house, that's a good 5 or 10 more vehicles you're putting on the road. But nobody seems to want to address that. They want to blame, the town of Southern Shores, the police department, the town manager. Anybody can bitch and complain. It takes a lot more for someone to actually come up with solutions. Viable solutions, not stupid stuff. So, good luck with that.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
I want to ask you a quick question. I was just wondering, do these counters also record speed?
That's correct.
Have you done any analysis of speed versus number of cars on Saturday or Sunday?
Yes. Cars are not speeding because it's bumper to bumper for the most part. That's not to say that there aren't a few that are speeding, but normally on the Saturdays, no, they're not.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is on the no left turn Saturday on the 23rd, if the traffic was lighter, were the ones that are making it through with it, were there any difference in speeding?
To be honest with you, I didn't really look at that, but I would guess yes, there are. I can look at that, but
Reason I ask, I personally observed
Sure.
some really fast cars on South Dogwood.
yep. And I mean, it just goes to show you, I mean, if it's not bumper to bumper traffic, they're going to make up the time any way they can, and
Yeah.
if they're not bumper to bumper, then they're going to be able to
And
speed.
they don't stop at that stop.
I know, we've been sitting there and
I know it.
when we can, but
It's a
like I
pain.
said, that weekend, we had one officer, and he was running his butt off, and he did a hell of a job. So, we do the best we can with what we have, and I'm proud of each and every one of them, so. Anything else?
Yes, would you please thank your officers for their efforts that weekend?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you,
Gary,
David.
did you have something?
I was going to ask, you said you pulled those officers. On a normal Saturday, you only have one
No.
assigned?
We try to have a minimum of 2. My goal since I've been the chief here is to try and have 2 officers on all the time.
And I was
Yeah.
completely off the traffic.
Yeah, no, normally we try to, but I want you to also understand, during all this, we're down an officer. We don't have 13 officers like it was reported. We have 10 sworn officers, and then there's myself and the lieutenant. And we had one that resigned about a month ago, so we're running shorthanded with 9 officers right now, because one resigned and moved back to Pennsylvania.
So that was my question. I
Sure.
was thinking, you got nobody to cover.
Now, they were told that if a serious call for service came up, they were to break off of this traffic detail and back the officer up, because that's more important than anything, so. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks again, David. Appreciate it. This time I'll call on Deputy Chief Jay Williams from the Fire Department to give us his report. Evening, Jay.
Mayor, councilmen, citizens, thank you for the opportunity to give the report. As you can see, the summer started out busy for Southern Shores Fire Department once again. We had 5 fire-related incidents, 27 calls for emergency medical service and rescue, 4 hazardous condition calls, 9 service calls, 9 false alarm or false activations of systems, and 2 special incident type calls. Any questions?
Any questions for Deputy? Thank you, Jay. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Town Manager's report, Peter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a short operational report for you tonight. Hurricane Chris, of course, is moving out, and the effects from that should be gone tomorrow. I met with the emergency manager from the county this afternoon in the office, and hopefully the red flags will be out tomorrow, and the beaches will be back to normal, hopefully. I did want to report to you that after conversations with the town engineer, as you directed several months ago, the designs for the 3 segments of South Dogwood Trail for a walking trail along that street, he still has those under design and still working on those. So as soon as that is complete, as discussed several months ago, he'll bring that design to you as well for consideration. And recall, that's to be in 3 segments each. The East Dogwood Trail design is set to hopefully go out for bid, not this week, but next week. We have had a meeting with the property owners along the south side of the East Dogwood Trail on June the 19th, and no major concerns came out of that meeting, so the design is being finalized and, as I said, hopefully put out for bid next week. I did want to update you on the schedule for some of the segments of the fire department discussions that you've had in the past. The fire department, a draft fire department contract is hopefully will be sent to you in the next couple of weeks prior to your August meeting for you to consider, so that it will be on the agenda in August, at your August meeting for consideration. This is a contract that the fire chief and I and the attorneys for both the fire department and myself have drafted and worked on, and as I said, it'll hopefully be to you in a couple of weeks so you can consider that. And it is right now, of course, anticipating a July 1, 2019 effective date. The second matter is that the architect for the fire station, who is employed by the Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department, based on the appropriation that this council gave, is scheduled to come to you again in September. As he indicated to you previously, he's coming to you now with the final design and as well as a site plan for your comments in September. And as it comes in electronically, I'll be sending it to you and, of course, posting whatever we can post on the town website. At that point in time, the architect is going to be seeking comments from the council, final comments from the council. And from that meeting, he plans to, of course, seek bids, construction bids, as well as finance bids, and anticipating coming back to you the first meeting in November with a finance package and a low bid for you to consider. And at that point, as we have talked in the past, that's when we all anticipated the council would make a final decision on its participation in this project on behalf of the fire department, if you wanted to proceed or not. So that's the schedule that I have right now for the fire department aspects. One final comment to you, I sent you the latest information from Division 1 and also the North Carolina Turnpike Authority on the Mid-Currituck Bridge. The Turnpike Authority is anticipating a record of decision coming out in the next month, as they say, in the next couple of months. At that point in time, once the record of decision is issued, the permitting and pre-construction process can begin on the bridge if that is the preferred alternative in the record of decision. Conversely to that, however, that's the time when any party withstanding can appeal a permit, bring a lawsuit for not following, alleging not following environmental review adequately, et cetera. So that's what the schedule is now as it's being put out by the Turnpike Authority. a month or two for the record of decision to come out. And as you recall, they were delayed that process after concerns came out about air quality issues from the number of vehicles. There was a difference in vehicles being found by certain people on NC-12. And so the consultants decided to go back and take another look before they issued the final ROD. So that's what the latest on the Mid-Currituck Bridge. And I'll be glad to try to answer any operational questions at this point from the council members.
Any questions for Peter?
When would be the first time that our town engineer gets a gander at the fire department plans?
Yes, as soon as we get the next set of the next design, including the site plan.
Which is September.
That will be September, prior to September.
Okay.
As per our practice, well, actually, as per the town ordinance, the town engineer would get to review, of course, the site plan for compliance with stormwater issues, once that comes out.
I only ask that because if they're using, I don't mean to speak disparagingly of engineers, but sometimes the inland engineers aren't completely tuned in with how the storm drainage is managed out here. And just to have a check there before things get too far down the road.
Totally understand, and that's required, and our engineer knows that, and he'll be given that as soon as we get it. That's been the latest involvement by town staff in consulting with the fire department's architect and engineer has been stormwater and wastewater concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Just one quick word about the Currituck County. David made a comment that I think is really true. None of us have gone to their meetings and said, help us out. But they did. Initially, when we set up the police enforcement at the intersection of Highway 12 and 158, Currituck County was involved in that for the first year. They were unable to continue that involvement because of shortage of manpower. But at least they did try to work with us for the first year and help control some of the traffic. Haven't seen them recently, though. Town attorney's report.
I don't have anything to report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'll open general public comment. Emily Osmond. Good evening, Emily.
Thank you for having this public hearing. Can you inform the public of the subject matter before I start speaking? I don't exactly know how to describe it. You know, I didn't know which paper. In other words, what's the issue? Can you?
The issue you're talking about is the 50-foot lot.
Okay.
And the lot that you happen to own one of, and the implications of the ZTA that we're going to be considering tonight for the second time.
Okay, thank you. My name is, what? I just want to make sure everybody knew what I was.
That's all right. You could have spoken during the public hearing portion, but you can speak since you're up here already. I'm sorry.
This is not a public
I
hearing.
signed up. Did I sign up at the wrong time?
Go ahead, Dan.
You can speak
Yeah,
now,
clarify
though,
that.
if you want. If not, you can also speak later, too.
Ms. Osman, the second reading of the ordinance related to the nonconformities is not going to have a public hearing. So the opportunity to speak is at the general public comment period, which is what is going on now. So you're able to speak about whatever you want, which
Okay.
would include that. And you're
Okay.
here for general public comment is what
Okay.
this list of folks is here for at this time, because there's
Okay.
not going to be a new hearing on the second reading of the ordinance that's
All right.
before you tonight.
Got it. I just wanted to, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Emily Osband, and I've been a full-time resident of Southern Shores for 27 years. My sister and I own a beach cottage at 170 Duck Road. This house was renovated, and it's a summer rental cottage. It faces Duck Road. The lot this house is on, which we've had for a long time, is 75 feet wide and approximately 260 feet deep. just a little less than a year ago, we had an opportunity to purchase a 50 by 100-foot lot, which is located at number 2 Trout Run. Before we made this purchase, we met with the town and the town planner to make sure the lot was buildable. We were given the go-ahead, the answer was yes, and so we proceeded with our survey and our due diligence before we closed on the lot. Our future plans are to build a small cottage on this lot. Now, my lot at 2 Trout Run, the small one, is perpendicular but adjacent to the lot at 170 Duck Road. They only share about 1/5 of the longer lot's property line, so they're L-shaped. These two lots have never been combined, so they could never be uncombined, and they face 2 completely different streets. So to combine them would be very awkward for any building purposes. I feel this is a unique situation, and the language regarding the definition of adjacent should exclude properties which only share a small portion of the same property line. If the combination of these 2 lots, my 2 lots, were enacted, we would have definitely lost a costly investment, and I don't think that our situation is pertinent to the current concerns by town officials and other residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill Cogger. Good afternoon, Bill.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to see you guys. I didn't know exactly where to place my comments tonight, but I guess this is the appropriate place, and what Ben said reinforces it. First, I wanted to make a couple of gripes. I've talked to Jim about it when he was campaigning. The first is about the time of the meeting. 5:30 time works out very bad for me. I usually eat about 6:30, and that comes right in the center of the meeting. I don't know if other people have the same eating habits, but I think I should reconsider the time of the meeting. Like right now, I'm starving, I guess, but waiting for a happy hour as well. Excuse me. Second gripe is about this 3-minute stuff. Now, I've spoken a few other times, and I almost always run over. And it's precious little time. You can't even cook an egg in 3 minutes, And in deference to the chief, he took about 20 minutes to make his presentation. And if you want to make a cogent presentation, you're going to need more than 3 minutes. And, I don't think it's appropriate anymore. The other comments, I have to thank Jerry Sullivan for getting us aroused a little bit about this zoning coverage thing. I came late to the party here, and so I don't have any real, credible, I guess, comments, technically credible. But in general, it looks to me, from afar here, or from in general perspective, that we're still kowtowing to the housing industry around here. We've been doing that for so long. When I was on Architecture Review Board, that was our big deal, that we had to worry about the builders. What do they think? And we almost always got overruled. It just never worked out that way. I just think we're a better community than that, and we're just about built out anyway. So, I think it's time to, think about environmental concerns, which would be one of my first areas of interest. So I got 42 seconds left, which I got about 4 more minutes, but anyway, I'll be brief for 35 seconds here. The particulars of the lot coverage thing, we covered them way back about 10 years ago, and it was flushed out very well, I thought. And some of these items that they want to exclude, to me, are practically not good. I mean, like, people can pave over these so-called pervious surfaces, 2 weeks after they get their occupancy permits. So here we go. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill. Lorelei DiBernardo. Good evening, Lorelei.
Hi, I'm Lorelei DiBernardo, and I live at 32 9th Avenue in Southern Shores. I thank you for tonight. This is like deja vu, because I'd like to speak in opposition to the ZTA 1804, the lot coverage calculation ZTA that you're going to be considering later this evening. I believe that this ZTA will change the absolute essence of Southern Shores by changing the lot coverage limitations. Lot coverage limitation contributes a great deal to our town's character, not only stormwater management. It's what makes us unique. We have large lots relative to other communities. We have great amounts of vegetation from the tall trees to the small shrubs. We have relative peace and quietude despite Saturdays, and low density. And a part and a key component of those attributes is the 30% lot coverage that we have been living under. I believe that the new proposed amendment to the town is designed to increase the footprint of structures on lots. I can't see any other interpretation. The trend to bigger and bigger structures with greater profits and square footage is nothing new, but we've stood up to this in the past many, many times. Last time was about 10 months ago. I stood right here. Y'all, well, not you all, but the town council voted against a very, very similar amendment last year, and here it is again. Briefly, I'd like to talk about the incentivizing of using pervious materials in driveways and walkways. That's great. Pervious materials are a low-impact development key. It's what helps with stormwater, but embedding it in a lot coverage calculation completely negates any potential stormwater effect that the pervious surfaces offer, because it will encourage greater structures, larger buildings. The one about the pool, that's just totally amazing. A pool covers a lot entirely and completely. I ask you all, again, the goal appears to be to increase the size of development, renovation, and building of pools. Is there an address in Southern Shores that can't add a pool today that could if this passed? Or is there multiple addresses? Another proposed change is this thing about the outermost 4 feet of eaves not counting toward lot coverage. I can't begin to understand what that's trying to accomplish, truly. But I know it will help increase the size of structures, renovation, adding pools. And this is exactly the apparent goal of the proposal. I urge you not to adopt these changes, but to maintain the qualities and characteristics of Southern Shores that we love, withstand the pressures of those who wish to profit from those changes.
Thank you, Lorelei.
Thank you very much for listening.
Nick Nuzzi. Good evening, Nick.
Mr. Mayor and council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak about is this the right time for the amendment? All right. I totally oppose the abandonment of the lot lines. I think when those lots were platted many years ago, that people bought those, or their ancestors or whoever bought those with the intention that it was a 50 by whatever depth they are. I think that people that just have one, they're not going to be affected by this. People that have two, they're being penalized. I mean, they bought two, or they bought two with a house on it, and I just think that's totally wrong. I've never, in my years of being in business and being a developer of land, have ever heard of a town proposing to vacate property lines and to take two 50-foot lots in this instance and making it one lot. I think it's totally wrong, and I think that it affects only a certain amount of lots that are nearest the ocean. And I think that, I guess what bothers me the most is that a lot of people that own these lots live out of town. They're not local residents. I am a local resident. I'm not affected by this too, by the way. I don't own a 50-foot lot or a house that sits on two 50-foot lots. But I just felt compelled to argue their case for them, because I could very well be in the same situation. So I just think it's totally wrong, and I totally oppose it, and I would urge you not to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newsy. Joe Van Giesen. Good evening, Joe.
Name is Joe Van Giesen, I live at 228 North Dogwood. A couple of things. I want to talk about ZTA 1707. Particularly, I want to read a portion of the section that precedes 36131. I'm sorry, it's 36132, which is what's being replaced. And the previous section, 131, is the intent of Article 5, in which both those sections are located. Reading from the intent. It is the intent of this article to permit these nonconformities to continue until they are removed, but not to encourage their survival. It is further the intent of this article that nonconformities shall not be enlarged upon, expanded, or extended, nor be used as grounds for adding other structures or uses prohibited elsewhere in the same district. So please think about that as you contemplate your vote. Another topic, this is to add to the body of information that the chief presented today. I don't dispute anything that he's presented, and I've spoken to him about at least one of these topics on the phone on Friday. Comparing traffic on South Dogwood from the 23rd, when the test was done, when the no left turn test was performed, I'm sorry, not South Dogwood, but Sea Oats. The chief counted or reported 825 vehicles on Sea Oats on June 23rd, 2018. He compared some numbers for South Dogwood and Trinity from that weekend to the year before, but one number that we didn't see in the report was he also had information for the number of cars that were counted on June 24th on 2017 on Sea Oats. The number on June 23rd, 825 cars, the day of the test. The number on June 24th, 2017, 1,967. I don't know necessarily that that means that we have 1,100 fewer cars on the road because we did the test, but it tells me that something's different between the 2 years, and I don't know that we understand it. I also think that one of the things that the chief presented tonight that I didn't see in the report that was published was an analysis of how all the feeder streets coming off Route 12 contribute to the traffic at the north end of town, and I thought that was a very nice presentation. One other thing, Trinity did get an increase in cars from 1 week to the next before and during the test, but if you look at the weekly average of traffic on Trinity the week before the test, there were 900 cars per day on average, and 1,100 on the day of the test. That's only a 23% increase. There was a 208% increase on South Dogwood that day, and a 500% increase compared to the weekly average for Sea Oats. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Ann Swersma. Good evening, Ann.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett. Good evening, everyone. Ann Scherdsma, 69 Hickory Trail. Because of remarks made earlier, I feel compelled to explain what bias is. Bias is when you present an incomplete report, cherry-picking the evidence that you want to give. Bias is when you make assumptions. Bias is when you pay more attention to people who crank call you about GPS than you do to the residents who live in this neighborhood. Bias is when you make assumptions about what people are doing when they jump off of Highway 12. They could just as easily be going to a rental cottage in the dunes, to a friend's house for dinner, to a marina, to the Southview Park, to the Sea Oats Park. They're not necessarily avoiding traffic on Highway 12. Bias is when you assume that people who are going north on Highway 12 on Friday nights are arriving for vacation, when in fact they could be going to Duck for dinner or to Corolla to visit with friends. Bias is when you make assumptions about people turning around, that they are locals, when you have no basis in fact for that at all. That is what you call bias. Bias is when you ignore the full picture of what occurred on that no left turn weekend, which was free-flowing traffic, delighted residents, wide open streets, and you don't mention any of that in your report to the local media. Instead, you focus on the few anonymous people who allegedly called and complained about some traffic on Wax Myrtle or Sea Oats. That is bias. And that is why people believe that what was presented was distorted. It wasn't the full picture. Last night I attended the Civic Association meeting, and the mayor said in his report that people loved the no left turn weekend. I'm quoting him correctly on that. Loved it. Well, that was not the impression that was presented by the chief's report. That is bias. And I'd like to say one more thing about the non-conforming lots. I would like to remind you all that there already is an ordinance. This is an attempt to improve upon what exists. We have had since the 80s a provision that prevents the formation. You can read it for yourself. If on or after July 7th, 1981, two or more adjacent and vacant non-conforming lots are in single ownership at any time, and such lots, et cetera, they're considered to be a combined lot. Mr. Gallup is not reinventing the wheel here. We've had this as a matter of our ordinances since the 1980s. There's nothing here that should shock anybody. And in fact, if you don't change it or enact this new amendment, we will still have it on the books, and we can still enforce it, and a lot of these people will still have recombined lots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to clarify one thing. Last night at the Civic Association, I think Mr. Gillick will confirm this. I said I had mixed reviews on it. I was very clear about that. I said people loved it and people hated it.
But nobody said people loved it.
I reported what I had been told.
Correct.
Just like you said, some people, but you didn't bother to say the second part of what I said.
Well, the chief said
And that was pretty convenient. No, I wasn't quoting the chief, and you weren't either.
you were distorting now what I said, Mayor.
I just heard what you said. I'm not going to discuss it further with you, Ann. Thank you. Our next person to speak is Jay Dunlap. Good evening, Jay.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm Jay Dunlap, live at 161 Yopon. It's off of Dogwood. So, talking about traffic. Traffic is what we have, and I just have two suggestions. Hopefully they're not silly or can't be implemented. The first is, can we get the state to help us out with the roads? Because we have a lot of potholes from last winter, a lot of cars going down the roads. And the second thing is, kind of on a humanitarian basis, shouldn't we have like bathrooms for people who are stuck in these, it's not funny, because people knock on people's doors, and we've had construction on Hillcrest and Sea Oats, and people use the porta-johns along there. So that's my suggestion. And there's 2 minutes left. I could give it back to Bill.
Sorry. That closes public comment for this portion. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is under old business, a second reading of ZTA 1807, zoning text amendment application submitted to the Town of Southern Shores to amend Town Code Section 36132, regulation of structures and use is nonconforming. The first reading before council passed 3-2 on June the 5th, 2018, and it's tab 2 in your book, council. You want to handle this from this point? You want to pass this?
I think you just call
Are there any comments? No. Are we allowed to make comments?
Sure, hang on, let me ask for a motion. I need a motion, council, to reconsider this particular item for the second time.
Councilman McDonald, you made the original motion at the last meeting. Would you care to make a motion this time to get it started?
Discussion?
Well, we don't have.
Motion's there.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Can I open up, can you like to open the discussion?
Following up on a comment on an email today, I'd like to go into closed session to discuss some legal parts of this ordinance.
Is that, you make that as a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Any discussion after on the closed session? Anyone opposed to that?
Is that what you just made a motion for, to go into closed session?
To discuss this for the legal implications of it.
And that would be 143-318.11A3, to consult with an attorney retained by the town.
All in favor of council going into closed session?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, we can go upstairs. Council, our choice is to leave this room, go up to the upper room above the town civic association office, and let the audience stay here, and we'll be back as soon as we can.
For us going up top.
I agree. Let me clarify. Let me just clarify. What we're doing. Can I have your attention just for 1 minute or less? What we're doing is going into closed session to discuss this particular issue, separate from this room, because we have to seek our attorney's advice. And as soon as we're through with that, we'll be back here. I'm going to give it 15 minutes, maybe 20. But anyway, I ask your patience. We are coming back. We're not going to leave.
You want a motion to go back into open session?
Motion to break for dinner?
7:30.
What is the ZTA number?
Motion to go back into open session.
I have a motion to go back into open session, council. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The regular meeting is now back in session. Thank you. Sorry it took a little longer than we thought, guys.
Can I make a motion?
You can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table ZTA 1807 and ask the staff and the town attorney to work up a ZTA amendment that would require 2 non-conforming lots that have one structure located on both of them be recombined into one conforming lot if the structure is demolished or otherwise altered in a manner that exceeds 50% of the value of the existing structure or any other improvements on the property other than routine, wait a minute, I apologize for this. Let me reread all of this again. And
We know what you mean.
I'd like to make a motion to table ZTA 1807 and have staff and the town attorney work up a ZTA that would require 2 non-conforming lots that have one structure located on both of them be recombined into one conforming lot if that lot is demolished or otherwise altered in a manner that exceeds 50% of the value of that structure. Let me just leave it at that.
All right. Do I have a second to Jim's motion?
Yes.
Can you give me a second?
Sure.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor of tabling this issue until, I would say, our next meeting?
August meeting.
If not
August
before.
August meeting or before if possible. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion's made and carried. So we're going to table the ZTA 1807 for future discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I might interject and offer one comment for the benefit of the audience. We've discussed about modifying this, and if we need to speed this thing along, then we may call for some special meetings of both the planning board and the town council. That's why I said, if not before, the next meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Next item of business, under new business, council appointments to planning board seat vacancies, your tab 3, council. I'll ask our town attorney to conduct this, these nominations and this vote for this council appointments to the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, we've got 4 seats to fill, 2 voting members and 2 alternate members. The planning board has treated them historically as numbered seats, so we'll deal with voting member number 3 and voting member number 4, and then alternate member number 1 and alternate member 2. I'll take nominations from the floor or from the council, and once we have a set of nominations, I'll go first come, first serve through the ones that have been made, and the first nomination to get a majority vote will be the nominee who takes the seat. If there's not a majority vote on any of them, we'll go back through the nominations again and see if there is a majority vote. And we'll do that for each seat until we get through all 4.
I make a motion, we nominate David Neal for seat 3.
So we've got a nomination for David Neal for seat, we're going to do seat 3 first. So we've got one nomination for David Neal. Are there any other nominations for seat 3? Hearing no more nominations, we'll take a vote on David Neal as a nomination. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against say nay.
I'd like to nominate Andy Ward for a
Seat
position
four.
as a permanent member of the planning board.
For
Seat
seat number
four.
4?
For seat number 4.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for seat 4?
I nominate Leo Holland.
Okay. Any other nominations for seat 4? Closing,
Go ahead.
closing the nominations, we'll take a vote first on Andy Ward for seat 4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We got 3. And all those against say nay.
Aye.
Got 2, 3, 2. Andy Ward is the seated voting member for seat number 4. Taking nominations for alternate member number 1. Any nominations?
I nominate Leo Holland.
Fred's nominated Leo Holland.
Well,
Excuse
Gary
me,
did- Gary
Gary's
did
nominated
too.
Leo Holland. Any other nominations for alternate member number 1? Seeing none, all those in favor of Leo Holland being alternate member number 1, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Leo Holland will be alternate member number 1. Alternate member number 2, do we have any nominations?
I'll nominate Mike Basilone for alternate number 2.
Any other nominations for alternate member number 2? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mike Basilone for alternate member number 2, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. That passes 5-0. Mike Basilone will be alternate member number 2.
Wait a minute, you said all opposed say aye.
Yeah, well, say, I'm not as good at this as some of the more experienced folks. Some people say aye, some say like sign, some say nay.
I say nay.
Okay, say nay. So it's a 4-1,
Yeah.
4-1 vote on Mr. Basilone as the alternate member number 2. Sorry about that, Fred.
That's okay.
That's all the nominations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We've completed that process. Moving ahead to public hearing and consider adoption of capital infrastructure improvement plan for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Tab 4 in your book, Council. I need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2018-0701.
I so move.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Do you need a public hearing on, I think there's a.
We do. I'm gonna turn it over to you right away.
Okay. Well,
I'll tell you, let's do the public hearing first. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Ben.
yes, sir.
So the motion is not there?
No, we're going to have the public hearing first.
We
Then
gotta
you'll
vo-
make-
so we-
then-
just
then you'll
withdraw your
consider a
motion. Thank you. Motion's withdrawn.
And you'd like me to do this one as well, Mr. Mayor?
We
I haven't looked
advertised
to
it.
see if we do or not, but
We
you've scheduled
advertised
one.
it.
Don't have to. It's been the practice of the town to do that, and one was noticed.
Has anyone signed up for this one? Sheila?
Let's see if anyone signs up. If not, we'll just possibly just cancel the public hearing. We're not holding.
If they want to talk, it's fine.
Yeah, it's always just passed.
So we'll have a public hearing on the consideration of the adoption of the capital infrastructure improvement plan for fiscal year 2018, 2019. And Mr. Van Giesen, if you want to speak.
Good evening, council. Joe Van Giesen, 228 North Dogwood Trail. I don't really have any comment on the specific projects recommended in the order. I trust that the committee did due diligence and selected the priorities that are appropriate. This regards the funding for those projects. I met with the town manager and the finance director a few weeks ago, right after the budget was approved, and asked them questions about transfer of funding from the capital reserve into the general fund for the income side or the revenue side of the budget. There were $282,828 transferred from the capital reserve fund. $195,000 of that $282,000 was associated with projects that could not be completed during the prior fiscal year. We asked why the funding was not reflected in the infrastructure portion of the streets, roads, and bridges budget. The answer was because then the budget wouldn't balance. I only want to express my hope that we see that too, and there was no increase in the expenditures budgeted for infrastructure or for the $250,000 that were budgeted for the South Dogwood Trail walking path. I would like to, so there was a total of about, I'd say 800 and almost 900,000 between the infrastructure expenditures and the walking path expenditures, which you would classify as capital expenditures. Everything else in the streets, bridges, and roads budget is maintenance. So those, I believe, those are the two capital items. I would like to see, I would hope to see that $282,000 is reflected in our expenditures for capital projects above and beyond that $900,000. So therefore, I would expect to see something like close to $1.2 million spent on infrastructure capital projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Giesen. Seeing no one else having signed up for that public hearing, I'll close the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
I can go back and answer the same thing I just asked for a minute ago. Council, I need a motion to adopt ordinance 2018-0701, establishing a capital infrastructure improvement plan and authority to implement. I need a motion to do that.
I'll do that.
And I'll
Thank you, Gary.
second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes. We've been 3 years on Yopon Trail, and I'd really like to see that get completed this year. And I've been bouncing on Juniper Trail for the last 2 years. Those projects need to be started as quickly as possible as we could, since we're already into this budget year, to get them complete so that we can move down to Group B. Because clamshell's going to need it too. So I'd like to see those start this fall, or actually this summer, as soon as we can.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Plan 2 years ago was to get Juniper done, and we didn't get it done. And Yopon was last year to finish that phase, and it hadn't been complete. So
Got it, Gary. Thank you. I need a vote to approve the ordinance 2018-0701. Council, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Motion is made and carried to adopt ordinance 2018-0701. Let me go back and look at my agenda here real quick. Public hearing, consider ZTA 1804. Before I ask our attorney to take over and conduct that public hearing, I want to make a comment. Relative to my own situation. Our home was built in 1990 by Rad Tillett, a respected local builder. We were issued an occupancy permit by the town in the early June of 1990. We maintained the home as a vacation rental for 12 years. Excuse me. Finally moving to Southern Shores in the fall of 2002. In 2003, we applied for a building permit to add a storage room under the east wing of our home. Our home's on stilts, about 8 feet above the ground. The permit was issued, but I was advised by the code enforcement officer at the time that our home and associated improvements to the property exceeded the 30% lot coverage requirement. Totally unknown to me before that. I was advised, since the storage room was under the existing structure and did not add to our lot coverage, we were issued the permit. We're about 3%, 3.5% over our mandated lot coverage. I conferred earlier today with our town attorney as to the potential of me having a conflict of interest in this matter, since I am slightly over lot coverage, and I will defer to him at this time for his opinion.
In this situation, you wouldn't be able to vote if you were considering your own financial interest, which is not the case, or if you were reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact by voting for or against the amendment that's before you. My analysis is that you would not have a conflict because you are similarly situated to just everyone else in town, that if this ordinance is passed and you followed some provision of it to have pervial payment or whatever to increase your property, all those people would have an increased financial impact as well. So you don't have a direct nor a substantial nor readily identifiable or differentiated from anyone else financial interest that would give you a conflict of interest in proceeding in this matter. Nor, my understanding is, do you have, are you passing this for the purpose of being able to get within lot coverage? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. This never, even the last reading of this, I didn't consider that, and so there's no reason to consider it now, so I wanted to make sure that I was being open and above board with all of you. This time I'll ask the town attorney to conduct the public hearing on ZTA 18-04.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm getting slightly overwhelmed by public hearing sheets at this point, but I think I've got them all organized up here. We will have this is a zoning text amendment. It's a legislative public hearing. Members of the audience who wish to speak will not be sworn. There will be no specific limit on your time to talk, but I would ask you to keep it brief if at all possible. The first person who has signed up is Richard Walker.
Mayor, Council, my name is Richard Walker, and I have a cottage at 30 Skyline, and I also have 2 lots, and this would be a direct impact upon my property. I, as opposed to some of the other folks that have talked about it, am in favor of this particular amendment. I believe that it would benefit the town to have a larger lot size so people can put a larger house on it, a single-family house, not one with 15 or 20 bedrooms, but one that's more reasonable. It would also show to the other people that are driving through here or come down to have a vacation what a nice area it has, because the homes are spread out and there is a possibility of having a garden or having something else there besides just the kids running around making a lot of noise. Right now, our lot size are 75 feet. I believe that is probably reasonable, but if you put a nice house on a 100-foot lot, you're going to have a setback from the sides, which will keep the noise from the teenagers and their rock music and the crying children, okay, at somewhat of a distance. I'm 80 years old, and I don't particularly like rap. I'm open for questions if there's anything else about this. Oh, one further comment. If there's some way for you folks to take care of the taxes so that the land is taxed at one value, whether it has a house on it or not, and then tax the dwelling as separate for your tax receipts. Is that something that's possible, Mr. Gallup?
Well, Mr. Walker, this is actually the public hearing related to the lot coverage
Okay.
amendment.
Well,
But to answer your question, the county deals with the valuation an appraisal of properties for taxes. So they follow the state statutes about how to break apart those things.
So it sounds like the taxes are going to go up.
Potentially.
Okay.
I believe they always do.
Well, it's been fairly stable, okay? But if you're going to tax the land that the house is sitting on at one rate and tax the land that is empty at another rate, people are going to talk about that. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
All right. Thank you.
And Emily Walker?
I'm Emily Walker, and I also live at 30 Skyline since 1953. I am in favor of the proposed move by the council from a purely aesthetic point of view. I think the larger lots, which would probably commandeer a larger house, rather than have house, 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 we would begin to look like Nag's Head, Kill Devil Hill, etc. I think the people that live here don't exactly want that kind of ambiance. So I too am in favor of the adjoining lots, 75 or 50 or whatever they are, combined into one lot, not less than 100 feet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
And next person on the list is Ed, is it Orenduff or Drenduff? They've gone. They've gone. Thank you. Andy Ward?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I think some people may be a little bit surprised about what I'm going to say here. I'm a builder, everybody knows that. But I've lived here for a long time, 35 years. And I'm not necessarily in favor of the CTA that's before you, and I would hope that maybe you would consider possibly letting the planning board, which by a 3-2 vote, I'm on there, so, and I'm a voting member this go round. I would like to be able to talk about this a little bit farther because there are parts on this that I'm not too sure about, and I think a vote tonight to approve it might be a mistake. I just was fishing around and I dug up my old survey here, the house I live at 147 Bayberry Trail. And you can't see it real good, but there's a house, there's some stuff on there, a driveway, but there's a lot of open space still on my lot. My lot's roughly 20,000 square feet, 20,469 square feet to be exact. I just did some quick math and just some hypothetical stuff, but really hypotheticals come into play quite often. Wes Haskett knows that. The planning board knows that. If it can be done, people in my profession try to do it. I mean, that's the way it rolls. So I did some quick calculations, and if we look at this strictly by the way it's written right now, I approve of the gravel walkways not contributing to lot coverage, fair enough. I'm not quite sure that 4 feet is what we want to do in eaves, going from, there's no language about eaves right now, to 4 feet is a big jump. I think 2 feet would be fine. But anyway, I'll get back to my calculations. 4,500 square foot house on my lot would work because I've got 6,000 square feet of buildable property there, the way it's written right now. So I've got if I wanted to put a 4,500 square foot house on that piece of property, the way this thing's written right now, I could build 1,125 square feet of deck with the 25% credit that's in the ZTA for decking as to the house. I could build a 500 square foot swimming pool, roughly 15 by 34, which does not contribute to the lot coverage. I could build 1,000 square feet of driveway. My driveway is actually 2,000 square feet, so I just divided that with what's in the ZTA right now, crediting half of that driveway surface to impervious material. So you add those three figures together, and now I could potentially net out an additional 2,625 feet of coverage on my lot, just from that ZTA. And I'll be happy to share these figures with you, but it's a hypothetical that could occur on the lot that I've lived in since 1994. But combining that with the current allowable maximum hard lot coverage of 6,000 square feet would yield an additional 2,625, which gets us to 8,625 square feet of coverage. Some of it's hard, some of it's impervious or pervious, which is, you're going from 6,000 square feet of coverage to 8,625. That's 43% coverage. Not all hard, but pervious and hard. In my mind, this issue isn't so much about stormwater runoff. To me, it's not a drainage issue thing because we live in sand. The sand goes away. The water goes away in sand. I look at it as more of an aesthetic issue, and sometimes less is more. More open space with your lot gives a lot more opportunity to utilize landscaping and or natural vegetative buffers between you and your neighbors. And I think that's a good thing. I don't necessarily want to have the ability to cram more stuff on my lot just because of this ZTA. And I truly think that you as a group maybe should table this thing back to the planning board and let us beat it around a little bit more before you vote on it tonight. And I appreciate the time up here, and thanks a lot for your service.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Really, really good information.
And Mr. German? Yeah.
Good evening again. Ann Scherdsma, 69 Hickory Trail. I'd like to start by thanking Andy Ward for his comments and also Lorelei DiBernardo. I agree with both of them in large part. I wanted to point out also that the planning board did not unanimously recommend this ZTA. In fact, two of the planning board members, Glenn Weeder and David Neal, voted against the swimming pool exemption in the ZTA. Elizabeth Moray also voted that this ZTA was inconsistent with the town land use plan. I attended the hearing on April 16th and made note of all those actions. Generally speaking, and I don't really want to belabor this point, I think it's unfortunate that we're revisiting this issue, that there's now another bite being taken at the apple. Seems to me that the public has made it very clear where it stands through the Code Right survey, lot coverage being a major issue and of utmost importance to most residents here, and far and away the majority said they wanted to leave the lot coverage ordinance the way it is and not make any changes. I think that you should give some consideration to that. Also to the fact that we have a review coming up of Module 1 of the Code Right project. There's going to be a public forum on that, and that could be another opportunity for the public to weigh in on this lot coverage. So I would join Mr. Ward in asking that you table this and let some more consideration be made to it. And I'm, I'm happy to hear what the planning board has to say about it, because there was not unanimity on every provision of this ZTA among members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Van Giesen.
Hello again. I would like to echo the two previous speakers. I agree with their points. And just to reaffirm them, I want to read from the intent portion of Section 36202, RS1 Single Family Residential District. Intent: the RS1 district is established to provide the low-density development of single-family detached dwellings in an environment which preserves sand dunes, coastal forests, wetlands, and other unique features of the coastal area. This district is intended to promote stable, permanent neighborhoods characterized by low vehicular traffic flow, abundant open space, and low-impact development on the natural environment and adjacent land issues. I think that the current ZTA, the proposed ZTA as written, is, as Mr. Ward explicitly showed us with empirical evidence, encroaching on the environment, the sand dunes, the coastal forests, because by encouraging larger projects, not necessarily bigger buildings, but larger appurtenances, driveways, pools, decks, we're encouraging more disturbance of the natural environment on the lots that we have. So please take that under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Giesen. Ms. Sullivan.
Jerry Sullivan, 31 10th Avenue. I'm going to join the people that have talked so far in saying I'm opposed to the lot coverage calculation because it will encourage building bigger homes in our quiet residential neighborhoods. We need to remember something about Southern Shores. We're not, we may be a tourist community, but over half of our properties are permanent residents. And of the remaining half, a large percent of those are property owners who are just using it as a beach home, planning to retire here. This really favors the building community and the rental machines. I, like Mr. Ward, did the calculation. I used a 20,000 square foot lot and 30% lot coverage, which was 6,000 square feet. If you were the builder and you went in and you took the 500 feet for the swimming pool and assumed 1,000 feet for a driveway and required parking, and 1,000 feet for the eave overhang, and 1,000 feet for the deck print, you'd be down to 2,500 square feet for the house footprint, okay? Take those things away. Now I can double it. I could max out I could add another 3,000 feet to my footprint, and I could max out the 6,000 square foot limit. And by the way, we know the state is always looking to change the law in terms of taking away our rights to legislate things. One of the things we have is lot coverage. Take that away, make bigger homes, and now all of a sudden, if that 6,000 goes away and we can't do that anymore, we're going to get bigger and bigger homes. Back in September, when you considered this before, I handed the council a picture of a rental home at 5 10th Avenue that was built in 2011. The lot is 18,000 square feet, and the house is 5,791 square feet with a 316-foot swimming pool and a 349-square-foot cement deck around it. And that doesn't include the decking clearly visible at the back of the property. How did they get away with this? Well, back when they did this, we actually gave credits for permeable parking and grass parking lots. So they put in a permeable driveway, and their front lawn is a parking lot that houses 6 to 8 cars during the summer. Ask the people on 10th Avenue what they think of this. Is this an attractive addition to our neighborhood? It is not. By the way, I heard the abuse used in building this house is one of the reasons credits for pervious surfaces were removed from the building code when the town code was rewritten back in the 2010 to the 2011 timeframe. So I hope you'll consider why the council did what they did and not pass this requested ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Is there anyone else in the audience who would wish to speak to this ZTA about lot coverage? Ms. DiBernardo, you can come on up.
I decided to read my husband's letter because he'd want me to. He'll be happy that I do. This is from Tony DiBernardo. He lives at 32 9th Avenue in Southern Shores. I'm writing to you today to urge you not to adopt ZTA 1804, proposed amendment to the town code concerning lot coverage. ZTA 1804 is a zoning text amendment recommended by the Planning Board to amend Section 36202 of the Southern Shores Town Code. He said, I am unable to attend the public meeting, so I'm writing. This proposed amendment does not adhere to the history or vision of TOS. The town has always maintained a vision of low-impact development, a family-friendly environment, and even signage of a bird sanctuary as you enter town. This proposal introduces new lot coverage calculations that will clearly increase the size of structures built and will result in greater lot disturbance and clearing. The direct impact of larger structures will result in less vegetation, decreased ground absorption, greater water runoff, increased potential for flooding. Remember the effects of Hurricane Matthew to the low-lying areas of our town. The existence of the 30% lot coverage maximum in our town, along with our relatively large size per building lot, gives us our unique look and character. We are distinct among the towns on the Outer Banks. The resubmission of this proposed amendment with minimal changes to last year's submission is a thinly veiled attempt to gut the lot coverage restriction by providing loopholes to allow the building of bigger houses. Gravel or pervious driveways do help stormwater, but to utilize these construction options in order to increase the size of the allowed structure is insincere at best, dishonest at worst. If gravel walkways are not included in the lot construction calculation, it will allow larger houses to be built. Larger houses mean less stormwater absorption and greater runoff. Another proposal here is the pool water surface will not be included in the lot coverage calc. Excess water in pools either overflows the pool or it's drained into the septic field and aquifers. Both of these contribute to groundwater saturation, so I see no logical reason to exclude this area in lot cover calculation. This proposed ordinance change will only encourage larger structures to be built. These changes would also allow pools, decks, concrete borders, patios to be constructed on properties that do not have enough square footage for a pool today. The construction of any pool increases runoff due to the loss of vegetation and ground absorption. The lot coverage calculation must include the total pool area. This ordinance change would create larger homes, less vegetation, greater runoff in a community that already struggles with stormwater issues. I'm sure that the general public does not want this. I'm also sure that construction companies, real estate companies, architects would desire this ordinance. It actually appears to be suggested by individuals who work for or in these industries, but it's contrary to the vision and history of Southern Shores. We have a historical landmark commission that's preserving the history of town of Southern Shores, and this proposed ordinance flies in the face of Southern Shores history. I urge you to respect the vision of TOS and not the monetary self-interest of some industries that appear to be the driving force for this proposed ordinance. Is not the environment and the TOS vision more important than the dollar? Please respect the previous decision by council not to adopt these changes. Sincerely, Anthony DiBernardo. Thank you for letting me read that.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Ms. DiBernardo. Is there anyone else, if you could raise your hand if you're interested in speaking to this ZTA about lot coverage? Seeing no one, Mr. Mayor, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ben. What's your pleasure, council? Can I get a motion to do any one of three things?
I do. Since the majority, and we dealt with this back in the fall, the majority of our residents oppose this change, I make a motion that we do not pass ZT 1804.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss it.
Sure.
I respectfully disagree with a lot of the folks who spoke. First misnomer is that the lot coverage is changing from 30%. It's not. the number's staying the same. The intent behind this, very honestly, is to encourage folks to do low-impact development projects. So giving people credit for turf stone or pervious materials encourages them to use it more. And in addition, there was a aspersion cast that somehow this is against stormwater. Well, very carefully in this, and this was a compromise from the last version to try to make it better, we are saying that you can only take advantage of some of these extras, right? Encouraging people to do this if you go ahead and present a stormwater plan. So that stormwater plan would be presented by an engineer saying that you don't have your water go onto your neighbor's property. That is something that Wes has the ability to ask for at this time. We gave him that opportunity, but he does not have to ask for it. So this is not an automatic. Folks are going to have to spend money to do this, which may limit the amount of times they do this. But furthermore, encouraging folks to use pervious materials is positive. But to think that people are just going to do it on their own is Pollyanna. That's ridiculous. They're going to do it if it's in their best interest to get something out of it. And so I think that you want to encourage that. You want to encourage the stormwater. You want to encourage people to capture their own water. Additionally, this actually brings us in closer conformance to state standards, which do not consider gravel to be coverage. Okay, so we talk about the state coming down and changing these rules. They're going to change it the other way. They're going to make any gravel, not 50%, 100%. They're going to make that not considered coverage. So this is, once again, a middle ground. Furthermore, open slatted decks. What we're talking about is a deck where water goes through, right? That's the whole point of it. Now, if somebody chooses to fill in underneath it, which is what we've talked about, I've heard, we've talked about the abuses. Yeah, folks can abuse this. And you know what? Very honestly, people abuse lot coverage right now. But what happens is, when they go to sell that piece of property, a survey is done. And the survey shows that they are over lot coverage. Other folks mentioned that, well, these are for developers. No, in fact, this is actually mostly for homeowners now. Because pretty much all the houses are built out. But the lot coverage is so tight, and it is not targeted to state standards, it's not targeted to community standards, even up and down the beach. And it's not even targeted to what is actually coverage. So you've got gravel, a gravel walkway would now be considered coverage. No rational person would say that the water doesn't go right through that. Why should that be counted against folks? Similarly, for open slatted decks, that's a deck where you would have sand underneath. Across pretty much all the outer banks, that is not considered coverage. Why? Because we've got sand. Andy mentioned the fact that the water goes right through the sand. So anytime you cover up the sand or block it, that should be considered coverage. That's the intent of lot coverage, is to take areas where the water can't go through. But where people put materials that allow the water to go through and to infiltrate properly, that would be low impact design type standards. Once again, the open slatted deck requirement isn't saying that 100% of slatted decks. It's saying that 25% of the slatted decks attached to the house could be included. So once again, it's a compromise. It's not saying everybody can put slatted decks everywhere and get all this coverage. Furthermore, the eaves weren't covered before. I think this is just an attempt to cover that. So the final element is swimming pools. The fact, I have a swimming pool. I can tell you that in a large storm, the water goes into the swimming pool, and yes, it fills it up. We talked about this last time. It's ludicrous to think that that your pool is going to be so low that it won't be able to absorb some water. In fact, it's a great way to absorb water. It's already coverage, and it protects against the stormwater. So what it's saying is it gives you some credit for holding that water, and that's all it is. It's a common sense thing. Are folks going to go ahead and will this allow them to necessarily go and build a pool? Well, maybe. I mean, that's possible. But is that the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. And most of those folks who are just going to buy a pool or build a pool probably already have a house. They probably have something there, and they're close, but they can't quite do it. So I respectfully disagree that any of these things will dramatically change the character of our town. In fact, everything in here is a compromise. And while I understand the feelings, being in this profession, understanding it, this is so much less than all the other areas. I think this is all it does is just get us in line with the fact of what is actually coverage and what stops water from infiltrating and what doesn't. And it doesn't even get us all the way there, but it gets us closer to what lot coverage really is and closer to state standards. So I am in full support of this. I encourage all you folks to vote against Gary's recommendation or motion. And I think this is common sense, and I think that you're gonna see on the renovation front that this is used more than you think, and I don't think it's necessarily to create more houses, bigger houses. I think folks can do that maybe, but I think maybe they'll just put a pool in, or maybe they'll put a walkway in, and it's gravel. I mean, where's the harm in that? Frankly, they're already doing it. They just don't realize it until they go to sell it, and now they have to take a gravel walkway out, which is ludicrous. So that's my comments.
I'd like to make some comments,
Absolutely.
if I could. First of all, you're not going to convince me, Chris, that a 4-foot eave is aesthetically pleasing.
I wouldn't have come up with the number 4 feet. I would have come up with
Well,
potentially 2, but
this-
it's in there, and the planning board recommended it, so.
Well, it says 4 feet, no way.
Frank Lloyd Wright would disagree, but I agree with your
It's not
point.
in a high wind zone, I would agree with you.
I mean, a 4-foot eave would be nice to get the water away from the house, but it's going to look pretty
I
bad,
would agree.
think.
I would agree with you in concept. I think it's-
Okay, and second, you can't convince me that a swimming pool is not covering the lot.
It is,
and-
but it's catching water.
It may be catching a little bit of water, but if you have a
Absolutely.
mega storm, that thing's going to overflow, and there's going to be a stormwater problem. I can almost guarantee you. Where's the water going to go? It's got to go somewhere.
What happens is in the major events, what I've seen is either the smart folks will drain it down and they'll use it to capture the water.
Yeah,
But what
right.
they do,
I don't see
what
that
you end up
happening.
doing is it captures the water and holds it so it can be released over time, which is exactly what you want.
I'm not finished. Second, gravel walkways, yeah, it's probably a good idea in theory, but those things pack down with time. And they're going to shed water. Pervious materials, I can probably buy that. But I heard some abuse with pervious materials, making a whole, a lot of area into parking lots around these homes. I don't think that's very aesthetic. I really don't. I agree with Andy Ward. I think this ZTA contributes to hurting the environment and the aesthetic value of the town. I'm totally against it.
I think overall, I'm okay with some of this, but is there anything that's time-sensitive that would preclude us from asking the planning board to take another look at this?
But the problem is the planning board voted unanimously the last time.
Well, we now
Not
have,
this time, but the time before.
we now have a new planning board that they may tweak some things some more. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there right now, because there's been some good points made. I'm kind of swayed by some of Andy's numbers, though I would like to sit down with him at a table and understand them a little more. But in principle, I see where he's going with that.
I've got some more, but you go ahead.
I got some more too.
I would ask us to consider Mr. Ward's recommendation to us, and I think his points are really well made here. That we do send this back to the planning board and have this newly constructed board look at it and come back to us with some things that really are worthwhile and some things that maybe aren't so worthwhile, and narrow it down. If we're going to make any changes at all, make ones we really feel absolutely essential to make.
I think that's not a bad move at all. Just ask the planning board to look at that again. You've got some new blood in there, and please include Mr. Basilone in this. And Mr. Holland, I'm sorry, Leo, I was drawing a blank on who the other alternate was. But just get everybody involved to discuss it.
Yeah, but there's one thing we tend to forget. There was a code right survey.
68.
Greater, and I don't have the exact numbers. but
68%.
Greater than 60% of the town said leave the lot coverage as is, not a bunch of exceptions. So why are we ignoring it? I mean, that's what this is doing. This is basically telling the people that have spoken to us that we don't agree with you, we're not going to do what you ask us to do.
But we have 3 choices. We can send it back to the planning board, we can vote against it, or we can vote for it.
You have a motion and a second on the floor.
The motion on the floor is
You have that. No offense, Andy. I voted this down the first time, and the reason I did was 68% of the people in the community responded to a survey that we had recently done, and they were against it. Their comments were to leave it alone. And I respect your lesson in building, but these folks really, they're intelligent folks. They don't really need a lesson right now. I know they've done their research. And the majority of our community is against this. I don't know why it came back up. Well, and how much money you need to make?
I'm not making any money from this.
Wait, that's uncalled for.
Yeah,
That
a
is
little much,
outright
Gary.
uncalled for.
Gary,
I'm sorry.
Please retract that. Please retract that. Because I'm not
Look,
making any money from this,
you're-
very honestly.
you're
This is
giving us-
more about the renovation market than anything
You're-
else.
You're giving us a history lesson on what you believe, and I'll let you go the whole time. You interrupted Fred 2-3 times. I mean, come on.
Wait a minute,
Is it-
I want to go
What you
back
said
to
was
that. That kind of behavior
entirely
is outright uncalled for.
Hey, gentlemen.
That is entirely inappropriate.
Gentlemen, Gary, I think you owe Mr. Nason an apology for that last comment.
I think apologies in order.
Okay,
I'll handle this, Jim. Jim,
I'll be quiet.
that's pretty simple. You spoke a little bit out of turn. I think you owe an apology. Not a big deal.
truth sometimes hurts.
That's not an apology.
That's right.
Have it your way.
Okay. I make a motion that we censure Mr. Donald for his comments.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second.
Well, you've already got a motion on the
No,
floor.
I know that. There is a motion, hold on. We got a motion on the floor we have not finished considering. Okay, I can't handle but one at a time.
Okay.
Motion on the floor is to not adopt recommendations of the planning board, reference to ZTA 1804. Is there any further discussion on that? If not, I'd call at this time for a vote.
Can we clarify what a yea vote or a nay vote means?
A yea vote means we're supporting, not approving ZTA
To not adopt
1804.
it. Okay.
All in favor of Mr. McDonald's motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Repeat the motion, please.
Gary, would you repeat the motion?
I made the motion that we not adopt ZTA 1804.
Okay.
And that we not send it back to the planning board.
Right.
That motion, you need a motion repeated, or you got it?
I got it.
All in favor of Mr. McDonald's motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have two ayes. Any more ayes? All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So we're not going to cancel that or suspend that motion or not support it. Do I have a motion to send this back to the planning board for their consideration?
I'll support
make-
that. I'll support that. That's fine.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion of that one?
Well, 68% of the community voted. I mean, come on, what,
You said
folks,
that. You said that.
what is it about not supporting your community that y'all
I'm
don't
not
get?
saying we're not supporting, we're saying we send it back to the planning board for their consideration one more time. That's all I'm saying. Just, I'm respecting Mr. Ward's request that we do that. And I think that there's a new planning board, let them look at it, and if they come back and say, we don't like any of this, or we love it all. I don't know what they're gonna say.
Well, we said one time that we didn't like any of it. Then you,
It's not what we said.
then you brought it back.
It's not what we said. We said what people didn't like was the pool.
Less than-
But that was the only thing people didn't like.
What was it, September to February, we brought it back.
This happens in probably every municipality and government in the United States, where something may be voted down, elections have consequences, and it comes back up again. Or you don't even have to have an election, that people will tweak things and bring the same issue up.
When the majority of your community says they don't support it.
Based on a survey that was so poorly written, most people didn't take it.
Code Right is
We
a
have a motion on
professional
the floor.
group that
That
we.
was a very poorly written survey.
Tom, we have a motion.
I
on
got it. There's a motion on the floor, gentlemen.
Call
to send this back to the planning board one more time? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. All opposed?
Send it back.
Fred and Gary. Thank you. Motion's been made and passed to send this back to the planning board one more time.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to, and this is related to this issue because it just came up. I'd like to make a motion that this board formally censure Mr. McDonald's for his comments. Those are totally out of line. There's no evidence for it, and
I second that motion.
I would have accepted his apology. I will withdraw it if you apologize now. If you don't feel like it, that's fine. I would like the board to formally censure him for his comments.
And I'm seconding that motion.
Any further
I'm willing to
discussion?
apologize. I'll accept it. We'll move on.
I don't know what he said. I couldn't hear him. Repeat it. I don't know what he said.
I was requesting that the board formally censure Mr. McDonald for his comments. I'd be
I
willing
don't know
to
what he
accept
said. How can I censure him if I don't know what he said?
Well,
Repeat what he said.
I'm not going to repeat it.
I can't hear. I didn't hear you. Y'all talk too low down there.
Okay.
I use my microphone.
Can you repeat what you
No, let's not even repeat it. It's so wrong on so many levels that it annoys the crap out of me.
It was an accusation that Mr. Nason is making money off this, off
Off
the
this
passage of
change.
that. That's the way I interpreted that
Yes,
immediately.
I think I'd agree with that.
I didn't hear it.
Yes. Which in my opinion was inappropriate. It should not have been said. That's, we have a motion by Mr. Nason to censure Mr. McDonald's remark and essentially censure him for making that remark. I have a second for that motion. All in favor of doing so, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion is not carried. Thank you. Let's look at the agenda one more time here before nightfall. Well, after nightfall.
We got another ZTA.
I know. We have public hearing, consider ZTA 1803, zoning text amendment, application submitted by Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department to amend Town Code Section 36163, Section 36165, and 36205, establishing parking, signage, and setback requirements for the fire stations. Mr. Gallup.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is another legislative zoning public hearing. Speakers will not be sworn. Currently, for everyone's edification, we only have Mr. Van Giesen on the list. If you'd like to speak, Mr. Van Giesen. Do you wish to speak to this last one?
No, I got confused about which ZTA that was.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to ZTA 18-03? Seeing no one, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you and close the public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you. Council, I need a motion to adopt ordinance ZTA, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Southern Shores as it relates to ZTA 1803. Do we need to read through it, or can you guys, one of you give me a motion to approve it?
You usually get Wes to explain the changes.
Wes, are you up to explaining the changes to us?
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and members of the council. You all did receive a staff report in your packets. This is for ZTA-1803. The applicant is the Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department. The requested action is to amend the town zoning ordinance by amending sections 36-163, off-street parking requirements, 36-165, regulations governing signs, and 36-205, R1 low-density residential district. The applicant is proposing to amend these sections to establish new parking, signage, and setback requirements for fire stations. First, the applicant is proposing to amend Section 36-163 off-street parking requirements by adding language to allow required parking spaces for fire stations that cannot be provided on the site of the fire station to be located on town-owned property and/or within the town right-of-way. Currently, all required parking spaces for any use must be provided on the site of the use and outside of any right-of-way. Second, the applicant is proposing to amend Section 36-163 to establish new parking requirements for fire stations, which would require one parking space for each employee, plus one space for each 4 seats in the training room. There are currently no specific parking requirements for fire stations, and as a result, the current fire station being used at 15 South Dogwood Trail provides parking spaces based on the parking requirements for a municipal building, which requires one parking space for each 200 square feet of net office area, plus one space for each 2 seats in municipal council chambers. Third, the applicant is proposing to amend Section 36-165, regulations governing signs, by exempting legal notices, identifications, directional, and informational signs for fire stations from the signage requirements. Currently, only governmental bodies, public utilities, or civic associations, with the approval of town council, are exempt from signage requirements. And finally, the applicant is proposing to amend Section 36-205 R1 Low-Density Residential District by establishing a 0-foot side and rear setback requirement for fire stations when adjacent to town-owned property or a town right-of-way. The town's currently adopted land use plan contains the following policy and action item that are applicable to the proposed amendments. Policy 12, the town shall encourage and support the improvement of all of the public safety services, i.e. the Tulsa Police Department and Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated, Ocean Rescue, and the Dare County EMS Rescue Services, to enhance the security and safety of the life and property of Southern Shores citizens. Action item 12B, the need for additional or new fire stations or improvements to existing fire stations should be examined in conjunction with the Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated. With respect to a recommendation, town staff and the town planning board have determined that the proposed amendments are consistent with the town's currently adopted land use plan, and that the town planning board recommended approval of the application 4-0 at their April 16, 2018 meeting. I will make one note. The site plan for the fire department, as Peter indicated earlier, is still a work in progress. I did contact the architect, the company, prior to the meeting to find out exactly how far away the site plan shows the fire department to be located, the closest portion of the building, how close is it to Pintail, the property line adjacent to Pintail Trail, which she indicated it was currently about 18 feet away. So I will make the note that even though the proposed language has 0 feet, you all could reduce that and still not impact any future applications for the fire department should you all want to move forward with that. The rear setback, which is also requested to go to 0, the rear of the building does go all the way to the property line on the current site plan. So if you all wanted to do so, you could amend the 0 side setback if you chose to move forward with this application on the side to 15 feet or however, but you would need to specify that it be exactly a number that would not be subject to the additional 5-foot setback because it is a corner lot. So right now, if they wanted to move forward with the site plan as is, it would not be in compliance with the town code as currently written because the applicable side setback is 15 feet plus an additional 5 feet because it's on a corner. So those are the comments I have with respect to that. If you all have any other questions or any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you.
So on the Pintail side,
Yes, sir.
18 feet between the road and the building.
The property line is not quite the road. The property line is south of the road, the pavement.
Pavement.
So the outermost portion of the building, which is an entranceway on the north side, comes out a little bit further than the wall that runs parallel to Pintail is about 18 feet from the property line.
So
They feel comfortable they're not going to need to push it closer to the property line?
I can't speak as to whether or not they've considered other options for relocating the building. I can just say that right now, with it being 18 feet away, a 0 zero side setback wouldn't be necessary in the event another fire station is proposed in another location.
But didn't he, in the plan we saw, there was parking
Yes,
by Pintail.
yes.
Does that still exist at that area?
Yes, sir. This ordinance also allows parking in a right-of-way, and that is still being proposed, that the required parking spaces be allowed to provide spaces along Pintail Trail in the right-of-way. That's correct. That is that's still on the site plan. Right now, all spaces are required to be on the property. You're not allowed to provide off-street parking spaces in the street or right-of-way. So this would allow them to do so.
I mean, we got a school right there.
Yes, sir.
Is there any safety issue as far as they're parking right up to the road? I know kids walk down and go home to Gingite.
Yeah, Gingite, Pintail.
The planning board did discuss safety concerns as far as a zero side setback. Now, at that time, we weren't sure exactly how far away the building was going to be from the property line. With respect to parking and vehicles coming and going from that area, then yes, that's obviously a concern or something to consider. Children and parents, whoever, do walk on Pintail often. I mean, that's something to think about.
What is the normal rear setback for that?
25 feet.
This is not going to be zero.
Now, the proposed language would set it to zero. The building on the site plan today, as is, shows the building going all the way up to that property line.
Would it hurt the Public Works Department just to give them 25-foot strip of land? To give the fire department a,
The town would have to go through the process of selling the property. I mean, I'm sure it could be done, but I'm sure it would take some time.
Well, let me clarify
Peter,
something
make
on
a-
that, please.
okay.
Okay, so
I
the town,
probably shouldn't have even brought that
the
up.
town property would be subject, under this proposal, under the ultimate proposal would be subject to an easement granted by the town to the fire department for parking. So the building wouldn't be back there on that line.
Okay.
It doesn't cross the line, it goes up to the line, but the other part of this does is it allows parking for the fire station to be on the town-owned property, which actually occurs today.
Well, do we have property for them to park on? I mean,
Yes,
do
we have
room?
We have property, and you will see that in the site plan when he comes in September, the proposed easement area. And that's already been given to the town attorney for a draft, to come back to you in draft form as well. We do have room for that. I would just make one comment on the side setback. Talking with Wes right now, if the council were to change that to 10 for purposes of passing this tonight, that would still allow for time, they would see the site plan coming in September, and they could still make another tweak if necessary. If the architect says that's not enough, you could still do that. But right now, they've told us, as Wes said, that it was 18 feet away. So if you change that to 10 tonight, that would be something you could consider doing, and then it comes back in September and still needs more room, you could consider another change.
Did you say a zero setback for the sign?
The language as proposed right now is zero side, zero rear.
Boy, it seems awfully close to the road at property line. It could be a safety issue, couldn't it?
That's what the planning board discussed, that it could be a potential safety issue should someone run off the road.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it was decided that it was not going to be right against the road. They at the time did not know the exact distance, but it was determined, Chief Limbacher was there, that it wasn't going to be right there next to the pavement.
Well, so to add on to that, and Peter, you may know, you've seen the plans. Is Pintail going to have to be upgraded over there to accommodate trucks?
Right now, that's not any more than it is. The entrance would be. The entrance to the parking lot would be as part of this site plan. But Pintail itself, I mean, it's taking trucks right now. Yeah.
Once you get past that location, you're
Mhm.
pretty much Pintail's down to the church. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I'm just, the building's
But-
coming out there, and they're going to
Are
put
you-
parking right to Pintail.
Did you guys discuss the fire code implications with the zero lot line?
Fire code implicate from the
Yeah,
actual fire code?
Because, the actual fire code, it is public safety, but when you start to have 0 lot lines, it's not impossible, but you start to then have to fire rate exterior walls.
That did not come up, no, sir.
And you know, you'll see this in like townhomes where there's 0 lot lines in townhomes. So what they have to do is they have to put a 2-hour wall between them, so that if there's a fire on one thing, and the same thing happens on lots. The common sense reason why there's usually 10-foot setbacks in most communities is that that's 10 foot on your lot and 10 foot on the next person's lot. And if you look at the building code, 20 feet doesn't require any fire ratings on the building code side. So I just don't know, that's something to throw in the mix, which is that it might require more expensive construction to get that.
Well, that adds
That rating.
more, another reason to maybe look into adding something to the setback requirement as opposed to the 0.
Can I backtrack on my question, Mr. Mayor, to Wes? One thing on the setback, this, as I recall when we were discussing with them, they set the stormwater and wastewater systems. Would that be affected by this side setback if it were underground?
My understanding, that's all underground.
I know, so that wouldn't be
No,
affected.
no,
by-
sir, that's-
Again, I think it would not hinder the architect to finish the plans to bring to you in September if y'all wanted to increase this to 10 tonight. I think that's safe. And then when the architect comes in September, he can tell you if he needs anything else. I mean,
I feel like we're caught in a chicken and the egg situation here because we're trying to give something and we don't even know if it's needed. I like the idea of just reducing the setback to 10 feet if that will give him the flexibility that he needs now to do the design.
I believe it would.
Then-
With the 18 feet now, that would allow, if something should come up unforeseen that would require adjustment of the building, that would still give them some leeway, some play.
I mean, we could reduce it to 15 feet, but yeah, I'd rather give him a little more flexibility and just take it down to 10.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm on board with the 0 on the back,
Yes,
but
sir.
I'd like to go back to what I had mentioned earlier in the meeting. The sooner that we could see some kind of progress, set of check prints here, it would help us get out of that feeling, or at least me out of that feeling, that we're just trying to determine which came first, the chicken or the egg. Did you need this, or are you just asking for it so you can use it?
These requests are a result of need, from my understanding.
They're what?
A result of needing
Need.
this, as you
Okay.
asked the question.
But they don't need it, the side setback all
But they
the
don't
way
need it to 0 at this point, no, sir.
Okay.
Well, why don't we wait and see the site plan before we decide what they need?
We can certainly do
It
that.
makes more sense to me. Why we're just sitting here with what-ifs and scenarios.
We're getting too many questions.
it is a timing issue, that's why I tried to outlay. The architect is pressing us to try to stay with his schedule because he wanted to put it out for bid late September, October, so it would come back to y'all as a council in November so you can make your decision. He's concerned that any delay in that would flip it over into the months down the road, and that's the only reason
Well, and if
these
he
were
doesn't
brought
know
to.
if he can, it's reasonable, if he doesn't know if we'll accept anything, then he's got to design a whole different thing. If 10 feet will,
I mean, you're the architect, but I think I can relate to what he is going through. He needs to know so what he can
right,
design accordingly.
he'll adjust, but we need to give him some guidance.
Yeah.
Whether it's 10 feet or 0, I mean, 10 feet's fine with me, 0 on the back, I don't care about, but.
Why don't we,
Are we out of public hearing, or are we back to normal meeting?
Oh, good point, good point.
we're out of public hearing or not?
Thank you, Wes.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
We
I can
are.
answer?
We're out of public hearing.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Wes. I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry I didn't call you earlier
Oh,
for
it's
some of the
fine.
other issues we were battling around here with. So I guess I'm hearing we should go ahead and adopt ZTA 1803, and the only thing we would change would be the setback from 18 feet to 10 feet.
No, no,
0
no, from
feet.
0 to 10.
0 to 10
From
feet, I'm
0
sorry.
to 10
Yeah.
feet.
I got my numbers reversed.
Yeah, you did. But you're good.
So do I have a motion to do that?
Yes, you do.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it,
All right. Any further discussion on this?
just to please get us a set of progress prints as quick as possible.
We're having a meeting Friday morning with them, and we'll continue to press to get y'all the paperwork ahead of time.
All in favor of the motion on the floor? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Motion's made and carried to adopt 1803 with a 10-foot setback. General public comment. We have two folks signed up for that for the last session. Joe Van Giesen, we haven't heard from tonight at all. Joe, you still here?
I would like to speak about freedom of speech. 2 meetings in a row, Mr. Connors has commented negatively about public statements in the press, on the internet, on a website that's addressing town issues, and responding to my comments to the Sentinel regarding the no left turn test and my email to the board and to Chief Cole and Peter. Mr. Connors brought up some negative aspects of my personal history. I believe he did it in a manner to intimidate me, to keep me from speaking up. I will let you know, Mr. Connors, it is not going to work.
Mr. Weeder, thank you. Good evening.
I'd just like to say that I have served proudly on a number of boards in my lifetime. I think you guys serve proudly on the board that you sit on. I know I serve proudly on the planning board, and I serve proudly on the CPOA board as president. But I have to tell you, in all my years, I have never, ever seen someone on my board attack the integrity of another board member. And the behavior that was exhibited here tonight was inappropriate and inexcusable. It cleared the room. You guys can clear a room. It cleared the room. 15 people got up and walked out. I'm begging you, get over your personal issues with each other, and let's all work together to do the right thing for this town. Please, I'm begging you. And Mr. Mayor, I want to say thank you for showing leadership and voting against the censure. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Glenn. I think a point well made, gentlemen. We have an obligation not to ourselves, but this town, to do the best we can for the town. And I think we're not getting there if we're fighting each other or getting into a personal vendetta. That's addressed to all of us, including me. Other business. I don't have anything further to add, except I'm really pleased about our planning board nominees and their acceptance by the council, and I think they'll do a great job for us. I'll start at the end. Fred, do you have something you want to add?
Okay, the only comment I've got is, I think that when we hear the public speak, we should listen to them, whether it be a survey, whether we like the results of it or not. I know on the lot coverage issue tonight, I heard a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot. I think there were four out of four that were against it. Also, we had a survey that said that leave the lot coverage alone. People are pleased with it. We've got a land use plan that we should be following. The vision statement is very clear that we want to keep Southern Shores a small seaside community, low density population. We want to keep the character of the town, preserve it. We need to consider those things when we're looking at these ZTAs. I think a lot of them are going against what all of the people want and what our land use plan has envisioned. And we need to be more careful in how we vote, because we are elected by the people to represent them, whether we agree with them or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary? Jim?
I'm just going to repeat something that I put in an email one time, that as far as freedom of speech goes, I will always say whatever I want, whenever I want, to whoever I want. Now, I will always try and be respectful, but when people are disrespectful to me, I might be disrespectful back, but I'm going to try and be respectful. I was impressed by what Chief Cole said earlier when he said he opened up the Bible, and I'm going to have to get him to tell me that again because he's a better man than I.
Thank you, Jim. Chris?
No comments tonight.
I want to thank our planning board. I want to say that it's hard not to take their recommendations seriously because they devote a lot of time and energy to make those recommendations. And I think that's why sometimes I'll say, yes, the public speaks, and we need to listen. We also need to listen to people we've appointed to do certain jobs for us. And I think out of respect for them, I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge their efforts and we try to listen to them as much as we can as far as their advice and counsel. I'd like a motion to adjourn, council.
I'll second.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.